Hello, friends, and welcome back. We're going to continue on the theme that we started last time, how it's getting easier to decode or understand Revelation. And I'm starting to see that there are different parts of it. It's not necessarily trying to confuse us or has different layers and starts over. This is kind of like a screenplay where there are certain portions dedicated to the introduction, the setting, the roles, timeline, and plot. So let's go ahead and jump in. When I opened the Bible up this morning, the Lord took me to the book of Isaiah. The wolf also shall dwell with the lamb, and the leopard shall lie down with the kid, and the calf and the young lion and the fatling together. And a little child shall lead them. That was Isaiah 11:6. And as I was reading this, I started thinking about, the lamb, the constellation Aries, the leopard, lynx, the lion, Leo. And so it came into fruition that these are things that I'm being revealed in the Bible. So let's go ahead and take a look at the book of Revelation. We're going to start in chapter 1. We have all sorts of introductions here, and we're going to see some of our main characters. Of course, Jesus Christ, the revelation of Jesus Christ, which God gave unto him. We are introduced to the Apostle John, and we're also told about what to expect. We've got some messages penned to the 7 churches which are in Asia. We've got some code words that we're going to see as well. The candlesticks. We've got a description of Jesus. His hair was white like wool, white as snow, and his eyes were aflame like fire. His feet were like unto fine brass, as if they burned in a furnace. And his voice was like the sound of many waters. And then we move on to the last verse, which we're told about the 7 stars and 7 golden candlesticks. The 7 stars are the angels of the 7 churches, and the 7 candlesticks, which thou sawest, are the 7 churches. Moving on to chapter 2. Here we've got letters to the churches in Asia. Chapter 3, same thing. And in fact, we looked at this in our last video as we were talking about the Church of Sardis. There were actually most of the members there had defiled garments. Well, I know what that means to me, but if you don't think that you know what that means, pray about it. But God was still able to pursue them, leave the 99 behind to pursue the one lost. And here in verse 4, it says, they shall walk with me in white, for they are worthy. They are worthy. We've talked about chapter 4 as well, and I've got a diagram to go along with this. In this chapter, we are introduced to the 4 living creatures. We see that there is a throne set in heaven, throne over all of creation. There is an emerald rainbow, the aurora borealis, or the northern lights. The 24 elders representing the 24 segments of earthly time by which we view the cosmos. The sea of glass made of crystal that sparkles like space, the stars in space. We've got 4 beasts full of eyes in front and behind. They praise God and do not rest. Those are constellations, and the eyes represent stars. And the beasts, one had the face of a lion, Leo, the other Taurus, the ox, the next one Aquarius, the face of a man, and the last one Aquila, the face of an eagle. Next, we've got chapter 5, where we are introduced to the Lamb who has the ability, who is worthy to open the seals. And I saw on the right hand of him that sat on the throne a book written within and on the backside, sealed with 7 seals. And I saw a strong angel proclaiming with a loud voice, who is worthy to open the book and to loose the seals thereof. And no man in heaven, nor in earth, neither under the earth, was able to open the book, neither to look thereon. And I wept much, because no man was found worthy to open and to read the book, neither to look thereon. And one of the elders saith unto me, Weep not. Behold, the Lion of the tribe of Judah, the root of David, hath prevailed to open the book, and to loose the seven seals thereof. And I beheld, and lo, in the midst of the throne and of the four beasts, and in the midst of the elders stood a lamb, as it had been slain, having 7 horns and 7 eyes, which are the 7 spirits of God sent forth into the earth. So praise God that a lot of times Revelation will just tell us what it is referring to. And then verse 6, here's a big one. We are given descriptions of the first, or the 4 horsemen, and then the following 5th and 6th seals. I'm going to jump to another screen capture that I've got. So here we've got the 4 horsemen, plus death is followed by Hades, the white horse, the white planet Jupiter, and it is called forth by the living creature with the face of an eagle, Aquila. So the living creatures weren't necessarily listed in order. That did take some thought, and actually I just did some research online. The first horseman is given a bow and a crown. We see that with the constellation Sagittarius. It has both, and it has it on the front end of the constellation. And we see that the sun lines up perfectly. We are under Aquila. We're with the bow and the crown just when the sun comes through and powers up. We've talked about that, how the sun seems to activate any of the, or amplify any of the signs that it comes across. And this happened December 30th, 2019. We've got a video on it if you'd like to check it out. The next horse is the red horseman, and that would be the red planet Mars. It is called out by Taurus, the living creature with the face of an ox. It has, well, the King James Version says a great sword, but the Greek says dagger, and that makes sense. The sword would be perhaps Orion's sword, but we're actually looking for a dagger. So we're looking at Buddha's, the shepherd. So late September of this year is when Mars goes into conjunction with the sun underneath this dagger. Again, it's just lining up perfectly. It's going to be there for about a month. And at that time, the Harpazo comet also comes through toward the end of that time. And we'll see that in a little bit more detail as we talk about Revelation 12. We'll read about Michael, the archangel, coming on the scene. Black horseman is the black planet Mercury, and it is called out by Leo. It's given a scale Libra, so we're looking for it to be activated in the Libra constellation. This Leo calling it out, that could be a warning, just like we had a warning with the red horseman over Passover when Mars was actually in the constellation of Taurus. There was the war in Israel, and it was a big deal, and it lasted several weeks. It wasn't peace being taken away from the earth, but it was a warning for the earth. And we've had all sorts of saber rattling even before then, jockeying, positioning for the remnants of the world after these judgments come through. That, the elites, they already know it's coming. They know what's going to happen. To an extent, nobody knows for sure. So we're looking at Libra. Libra was called out by Leo. So that was around the August time frame. May have had a bit of a warning there with the financial markets. I heard that there were some changes with how people were saving their money, investing their money, but I'm not one to focus on the markets. We're going to have right here the Harpazo comet is what I call it, comet 342 Soho, the Rapture comet, and it's going to come in, as we see here, in conjunction with Mars and the Sun, and actually Mercury as well. It's potentially, just like it says in chapter 1 of the book of Revelation, these things are going to happen suddenly, and boy, oh boy, there's a lot of potential here. We may get a warning later this, during this time, and then it will go full strength in November when Mercury is actually in the scale in conjunction with the Sun. And then the pale horseman, we've got Saturn, who is signified with Satan, and Hades, Pluto, the underworld. Pluto is actually right here. It's not, large enough to necessarily be seen on Stellarium or online planetarium, but Pluto's is over here, and the reason that we know that it's going to be this year rather than next year or the following year, even though Saturn will still be in Aquarius because it's one of the slower moving timepieces, we know that it's going to be this year just because of all the other signs along with it, but it says death will be following closely behind, and this year is the year that death, or Pluto, Hades, will be the closest to it. There's also a comet Cerberus, the Hounds of Hell comet. I don't make this stuff up. That will also be in the vicinity at this time. This will go into a warning, I believe, with Saturn entering Aquarius in mid-December, and then full strength when the Sun comes in and it goes into conjunction. Again, we're going to see this in chapter 12. It's going to be a scary time. It's gonna be very memorable. Also during this time, we've got the Antichrist comet. We've got a video on it. Basically, we'll see it in the next diagram, but it bounces around in a certain area. Feet of a leopard, feet of a bear, mouth of a lion, body of a leopard. Those are constellations, and we're going to look at those in a minute. But this Antichrist comet comes through right after our economic collapse with Mercury in the scale, and about the time that Saturn enters Aquarius, signifying the Antichrist comet, signifying that he's going to come on the scene and fix things according to what the world says, but we'll see. We'll see. And here is that composite picture. We've got the two witnesses here as well, but here's horseman number 1 with Jupiter and Sagittarius coming out 12/30/2019. And then the second horseman over here, we're looking at end of September through the end of October 2021. Mercury, November 20, that should be November 2021 right there. So we've got 11/22/2021, and then in comes the Antichrist comet Leonard. As I said up here, it was bouncing around over here, where we've got the constellation Ursa Major with the feet of the bear. We've got Leo and Leo Minor, the mouth of a lion, the body of a leopard over here with the Lynx constellation. And over here we've got together between Hydra and Draco, we've got 7-headed dragon constellation. Lots of things happening through here, and then in comes the Antichrist comet right here. It goes into conjunction with the planets and the Sun between the 4th and 5th seals, and then the 5th seal being the seal of the martyrs. Venus, planet Venus, is going to be over here. There's no horseman associated with the 5th seal, and I believe that that's because God's not going to send one of his angelic beings to kill his own people, nor will he let death and Hades do that either. And then down here, we've got the constellation Ara, which is our altar constellation. And so when it talks about the saints being under the altar, well, that's kind of a weird place to put saints. I don't think that God has them captive in an area confined under an altar. This is figurative for a time frame. So that's number 5. With number 6, I'm actually going to jump back to the study that we did with Capricorn, because Amos 8 talks about the basket of fruit with relation to the darkness that comes down the earth at noon. Capricorn has a broken horn, which is where we get the term cornucopia, because it was filled with fruit. And I'm not going to go into that story, but that is where the sign presented itself around this same time frame, February 2022, with the 4th horseman. So it seems, after the tribulation of those days, January is going to be a hard month. We've already, are seeing signs of the induced famine, farmers burning their crops, problems with the blockchain. Winter and famine is not going to be good. This is going to be likely a relatively short time. People are either going to surrender to these FEMA camps, or they're going to be captured when they're trying to steal or buy food. There are a couple of other pieces that we have here, namely these 2 W's. These are the 2 witnesses. People are saying that they are one male and one female, so we've got them pink and blue. Pink being Justitia. She is going to be in conjunction with the sun, with the red horseman, with the Harpazo comet, with Mercury, when all of this goes down toward the end of October. I'm going to say as late as the 22nd, 23rd of October. That's just me based on the dream that I had. I'm praying over it. I've been praying over it for the past year. When people were calling me a false prophet for saying that, God just gives us these dreams a year in advance, so don't tackle people for sharing them and trying to help. Over here, we've got witness number 2, Pompeia. And that was in conjunction with the sun on, the beginning of August. And that's when the Taliban took over Afghanistan. I believe that was a big time warning for the things that are to come. Another thing I'd like to point out here, and I'll do another video on it, is Crater. This is the cup of God's wrath. And there are times that it's going to be facing up, and there are times it's going to be tipping over. And that's something that happens really every day during the rotation of the sun, or the earth. But there's also another clue that we can look at with this cup of God's wrath, and I'll do a video on this. Over here, K2A. Its proper name is C 2017 K2, but I think of this as Key to the Abyss. We've got a video on that, how this comet basically flies through, high fives the Antichrist comet Leonard, or fake lion Leo Antichrist comet, and then comes over here. You can't see it, but again, we do have that other video, and it's bouncing around in the Abyss constellation, Eridanus, and Fornax, the Furnace constellation. And it's in that area for 5 months until it encounters Montecero right here, our unicorn constellation, right under its feet. And let me tell you, that is exactly how horses kill snakes or anything that gives them trouble. I know because I had a dog that tried to give a horse a hard time once, and never again. That did not happen ever again. All right, so we've gone over 4 of our horsemen as well as the 5th seal. I'm going to save the 6th seal for when we get into that in chapter 12. Yes, it is a similar storyline there. And that's what makes reading Revelation so easy is we've got the introduction, we've got an introduction to our characters, we are given descriptions or a synopsis, just like we saw in chapter 6. We're going to see these descriptions in chapter 7. Actually, we're going to get a little bit of a reprieve in chapter 7. We go back to the heavenly introduction, and then back to the judgments. So it's not that this is trying to be something super hard or hidden. We just need to spend a little bit of time in the book. And I don't understand, a lot of people spend way more time looking at the devices of Satan than learning about God's plan. So pray about these things. It's something that we can all improve on. I do want to touch a little bit on chapter 8, verse 3. And another angel came and stood at the altar having a golden censer, and there was given unto him much incense, that he should offer it with the prayers of all saints upon the golden altar which was before it. So this angel winds up throwing this incense, this censer, to the earth. This is going to come into play when we talk about the trumpets 1 through 4. We're going to look at that on our timeline. Yes, we do have a timeline, and we are going to look at it. Chapter 9, we're talking a little bit more about the judgments. We've got the fifth angel of the trumpets going to open the bottomless pit. And then after that, we've got jumping down. Verse 15 talks about the 4 angels that were loose, which were prepared for an hour and a day and a month and a year to slay a third part of all men. And the number of the army of the horsemen were 200,000. And I heard the number of them. I think that's 200 million. And I saw these horses in the vision and those that sat upon them. And I'm going to jump down here to the end. Out of their mouths issued fire and smoke and brimstone. And there's no precedence for that coming from a person in scripture, but it does come from the heavens with Samuel and the prophets of Baal, Korah's rebellion, Elisha and the kids that were picking on him for his bald head. These could be actual people. I don't think so. I think that these are going to be comets, and I'll tell you why. We've got the first 4 trumpets, which are actually cosmic events that are going to kick off. It's going to be the tail of Nibiru, which we'll go into a little bit more about what that is. The 6th seal will likely be Nibiru, the comet, and then the tail, science tells us, is about 6 months afterward. So we're going to look at those things as we get into Chapter 12. We'll go into detail there. But I just wanted to give my 2 cents in terms of these interpretations. Hopefully we won't be here when they happen. Chapter 10, we've got some more introductions, some more imagery here. The 7 thunders. And then with the next chapter 11, we've got the 2 witnesses, and we've got the angel measuring the temple in the heavens. And we can also see that in the stars. I plan on doing a video about it. Okay, now our long-awaited chapter 12. This chapter has probably thousands of videos on it, and here's why. It started our clock, and this is how we know that the 4 horsemen are riding, about to ride, is because this sign that we're going to read about did manifest September 23rd, 2017, and most of us had no idea that it happened for years. We didn't. And there appeared a great wonder in heaven, a woman clothed with the sun and the moon under her feet. We're looking at the heavens. And upon her head a crown of 12 stars. And she, being with child, cried, travailing in birth, and pained to be delivered. So this was a difficult one to crack. I don't know if I ever would have been able to do it myself, but we've got Virgo here, the woman constellation, and then we've got Leo is above her head, but it has 9 stars. Well, we've got these 3 planets, Venus, Mars, and Mercury, totaling and completing the crown of 12 stars. We also have her clothed with the sun. As is the custom for every September, the sun's going to be in Virgo, and then the moon at her feet. The Jupiter, king planet, was in her womb for 9 months, then went what is called retrograde, where it looks like it's going backwards. It really isn't, but that's how it appears. And it appeared to exit her womb on this day in September 2017. Continuing, verse 3. And there appeared another wonder in heaven. So we've got perhaps a gap in time and a different setup. And behold, a great red dragon having 7 heads and 10 horns and 7 crowns upon his heads. We talked about that with our previous diagram before the last one. And his tail drew the 3rd part of the stars of heaven and did cast them to the earth. And the dragon stood before the woman which was ready to be delivered, for to devour her child as soon as it was born. So again, these could be stars or asteroids coming with a planetary object. It could also be demonic activity with the 4th horseman, the pale horse or livid horse. This is going to be very scary if that's truly what it is. Either way, it's going to be very scary. If it's demons, if it's asteroids, if it's both, it's going to wipe out a 4th of the population, or it's going to attack a 1/4 of the earth. So just before that happens, though, she delivers her child. She brought forth a man-child who was to rule all nations with a rod of iron. We see that in chapter 1 as Jesus Christ is being introduced. And her child was caught up unto God and to his throne. We're going to see Jesus Christ with ruling with a rod of iron again in chapter 19 with 10 crowns that I believe represent him taking these 10 crowns from the dragon. The dragon will give those 10 crowns to 10 rulers who will be ruling with the New World Order, and Jesus takes those right back. Verse 6, and the woman fled into the wilderness, where she hath a place prepared of God, that they should feed her there 1,260 days. So there's going to be 2 similar descriptions here of a woman being taken care of for the same amount of time. These are 2 different rapture events, and we're going to see why in just a moment. At the same time, verse 7, there was war in heaven. Michael and his angels fought against the dragon, and the dragon fought and his angels. So we've got a war here. We've got Michael as the 2nd horseman. But not only that, we see all of these things happening. We see the woman caught up, just like we saw with our Harpazo comet diagram. And you can see that right here, this again, October 2021. And continuing on to verse 8, and prevailed not, neither was their place found any more in heaven. And the great dragon was cast out, that old serpent called the devil. We see that with Leonard, the Antichrist comet, just like a bat out of Hades. It's getting cast out. Called the devil and Satan, which deceiveth the whole world. He was cast out into the earth, and his angels were cast out with him. And again, this could be, after the harpazo, the rapture. We're heading into the 4th horseman with all of these demonic presences attacking the planet. Now, let me look at that real quick. We see from chapter 6, verse 8, power was given unto them over, this is, again, it's plural, it's death and hell or Hades, over the 4th part of the earth, to kill with sword and with hunger and with death and with the beasts of the earth. And as crazy as it sounds, people are having visions of wolfmen, werewolves, and even Mike from around the world said, we're going to see crazy things. Stephen Ben-Nun has said the same thing. And there are actually modern day accounts of people being attacked by a wolf, werewolf, wolf-man creature. Look it up. It looks to be somewhat similar to what Egyptian hieroglyphics have with their dog god. The name of that entity escapes me right now. But this is going to be a lot of carnage and a lot of death. And people have videos where they talk about body bags, that they are filming truckloads and truckloads and truckloads of these plastic body bags. They could be for the martyrs, but they could also be for this very same event. Continuing on, Revelation 12, chapter 12, verse 10. And I heard a loud voice saying in heaven, now is come salvation and strength and the kingdom of our God and the power of his Christ. For the accuser of our brethren is cast down, which accused them before our God day and night. And they overcame him by the blood of the Lamb and by the word of their testimony. And they loved not their lives unto death. So we see how chapter 12 and chapter 6, they are mirroring each other. We talked about the second horseman, maybe not so much the third horseman, but economic collapse, famine. They are often part of war or result in the aftermath. We see the fourth horseman and now the fifth seal. Demonstrated or personified. So actually not personified, but demonstrated. So again, Revelation, it's not trying necessarily to be cryptic. This could have been how they wrote back at this time. They just kind of introduced the topic and then they went into a little bit more detail later on. The book wasn't necessarily divided into portions or chapters, but this is how it's playing out now. Verse 12, therefore rejoice, ye heavens, and ye that dwell in them. Woe to the inhabitants of the earth and of the sea, for the devil is come down unto you, having great wrath, because he knoweth that he hath but a short time. And, this could also be in relation to people are saying aliens. And there are more and more believers that could be a thing relatively soon. A lot of deception in that. A lot of deception. Just turn to Jesus as your salvation. Verse 13, and when the dragon saw that he was cast unto the earth, he persecuted the woman, which brought forth the man-child. And to the woman were given 2 wings of a great eagle, that she might fly into the wilderness, and to her place where she is nourished for a time and times and a half time from the face of the serpent. Okay, so we've got another rapture scene. Again, it talks about times and times and a half time. I believe that is basically interpreted the same as 3.5 years as we saw previously. But this happens after the martyr scene. So these are people who perhaps escaped martyrdom and were seeking Jesus and were putting their faith in him, not trying to hide out in these beast system churches and go with whatever people were telling them, putting their hope and trust in Trump or Obama or aliens or anything else. They repented. They repented and were spared martyrdom, and they were raptured. Verse 15. And the serpent cast out of his mouth water as a flood after the woman, that he might cause her to be carried away of a flood. And the earth helped the woman, and the earth opened her mouth and swallowed up the flood, which the dragon cast out of his mouth. This is the 6th seal. Tsunamis are going to be likely experienced on both of our coastlines here in the U.S. as well as all around the world. And we see that in chapter 6 of Revelation as well, when it talks about and said to the mountains and rocks, fall on us. Okay, verse 14, actually, and the heaven departed as a scroll when it is rolled together, and every mountain and island were moved out of their places. So these are describing the same events. Verse 17 of chapter 12, and the dragon was wroth with the woman and went to make war with the remnant of her seed. I'm going to touch on that in a second, which keep the commandments of God and have the testimony of Jesus Christ. Now back up to this previous verse. Okay, when it says the earth opened her mouth, of course that sounds like an earthquake. And I am reminded of the book of Acts, where was it Peter or Paul? Probably Paul, who was saved by an earthquake. They were able to escape their jail cells because the earthquake. So we've got to take God's provision as he sends it. We can't always know how things are going to take place. Okay, so this goes into chapter 13 is next, and we talk about the Antichrist. I'm not really going to go into that. We do have a video, and we've touched on it here as well. So this is basically where I'm going to stop. But again, this, introducing characters and then describing events. So let's head over. Actually, before we do that, I want to take a look here at the wings of the great eagle, because I know that I referred to it a little earlier, the wings of the great eagle. And the woman were given 2 wings of a great eagle that she might fly into the wilderness and to her place where she is nourished for a time and times and a half a time from the face of the serpent. Oh, she's going to fly. I wonder how that's going to happen. Well, again, Comet Nibiru has wings because it is likely giving off sediment as it flies through, but it has been depicted in ancient hieroglyphics as a winged comet. And again, it's about the size of Jupiter, so that's going to do a lot of damage, particularly and it will likely go through our asteroid belt, spewing asteroids all over the place. This could be the 200 million man army right here, spewing out fire. Anyway, let's see.